In this playing and learning through play, and playing to learn concept, children are allowed to totally express themselves in such a way that is acceptable. So many times, children that are just buzzing to express themselves one way or another get in a lot of trouble because they don't have quite a few avenues to express themselves through, or the avenues that they have been given include things like violence. Next thing you know, you've got a whole group of kids in the backyard playing Rambo, and they bring it right into the house. They start breaking things, and the parents wonder what's wrong with their kids. But in a process that allows them to express themselves, get out their extra energy, and learn at the same time. I might say the children are happier, the parents are happier, everyone's happier about it. Also with basic spiritual concepts. From the time a child is about 5 years old, they're taught astral projection. For those who are unfamiliar with that, there's a part of you, a very conscious part of you, that is able to leave the body at small periods of time consciously. When this part is projected, you might say the astral body, soul travel, the more evolved, the farther you can go. And the child is taught that they can visit the Akashas, are taught that they can visit different places on the planet. What this also creates is a chance for the child to explore and to understand for themselves. The children don't have to go through the period of having to always take someone else's word for it. They're able to get out and see the astral themselves. They're able to get out and see the etheric records themselves. A lot of them are able to get into the etheric retreats consciously and study that way. Many are able to get to the other subterranean cities or to spend time in surface cities. All through the etheric travels, astral travels. But as I said, in essence, and the child is able to learn for themselves the truth of how the world truly operates, the truth about what is really happening on the planet. Their way, they are never at a victim. They can not be led astray. They can't be told that something's right when nothing in the cosmos supports it. They can always go and feel the rightness for themselves. Thus you end up with a society of people that are not constantly left in the dark, and that you are basically not able to trick them on, because they've seen what's out there. They know what's real and what isn't. They know the capabilities of the human being. They know, for instance, ascension is real. They know, for instance, the existence of those on other planets. They understand how the etheric works. They've seen angels physically. So all these things that so many people have had to live on with faith, true, I'm saying we also develop faith. Faith to master yourself. Faith to live in the unseen, calling it the seen until it becomes the seen. In other words, able to manifest from the inside out. And there is not so much confusion, even when people reach that age that has been quite difficult for everyone, the teenage years. In the teenage years, in Telos, a child immediately joins, when they're 12, a group, what is called group. A group is all the other children their age, and they spend usually from the years of 12 to the years of 18, 19. They spend much of their time with their group, working out all the problems among their peers that seem to always rear their head in the teenage years, no matter what society you're in. Yes, we still have teenage problems that happen. It can't help but happen. The emotional and mental bodies are developing. A child's body is full of hormones that's creating instability within the emotional realms. The mental body is growing stronger but causing confusion in the emotional body. All these little physical, psychological, spiritual elements that create that phase from childhood to adulthood. But we've learned to take it tongue-in-cheek. In essence, we call the teenage years the years of temporary insanity. And we don't make the children feel guilty for wanting to go and scream at the top of their lungs or wanting to do something they know they shouldn't do. We just accept it as the years of temporary insanity. They work out their frustrations within their group. They experiment with the elements of life within their group. Quite often they go down into the lower caverns and just run for days. All the things that they can get in so much trouble for doing unless it's put in an organized basis. Yet the basis has to be so unorganized within its organization that they have to feel that they're truly being allowed to express themselves. So that the frustration is brought up, dealt with, and then they move on. All children, no matter how good their parents, no matter how good their upbringing, will go through periods of rebellion at this point. All children will go through periods of not wanting to listen to what older people say. But by being allowed to work it out within themselves and with other children going through the same process, they are able to get an understanding that what they're doing doesn't make them a bad person. The feelings that are going through them uncontrolled doesn't make them bad, just makes them normal. And it makes it so much easier on the child and on the parents. Also, each of these groups are then assigned priests and priestesses who act somewhat as mentors, not to judge or act like parents, but to simply get the kids to sit down and talk about what's bothering them. Let them sit down and act out their frustrations in the form of plays, in the form of programs that have been put into the holographic theaters, in the form of music, in the form of athletics, or even in the form of going down into the subtunnels and just running for 3 days and acting like nuts. Everybody needs that. But when it's done in such a way that there's no judgment upon it, no stigma attached to it, then children do it, get through it, and come back normal. And do not need many of the crutches that severely emotional adults turn to. Many adults that did not deal with the frustrations that came up in their childhood or in their teenage years that later turn to drugs, later turn to inappropriate forms of behavior, that later turn to irresponsibility, or later turn to perhaps even more damaging of I'm not good enough, depression, fear, unable to create anything out of their life because they don't feel like it's just not worth it, that they can't do anything right. But by creating a system where all these energies are dealt with, then adults come out feeling much more secure of themselves at the other end of their teenage years.